what I was talking about is this paradox, this conundrum that we're all sitting with as human beings, where we've been and we've been complicit in this, but we've been drawn to thank you. We've been drawn collectively towards this edge of neuroses and mania and overwhelm, and collectively we're insane. Okay, sanity means when you have a healthy mind, right? Our collective mind is not healthy. It's we're at war with ourselves. If we look at humanity as oneself, as hard as that may be for some people, we are disintegrated. Our ideas and our modes and our perspectives are enormously incompatible. Our intuitions are misaligned. There's some human beings predating on other human beings, creating systems of control and confusion and distraction, which enrich some and disenfranchise others. Looked at from a distance, it's a profoundly unhealthy moment, profoundly troubling, because we're also deeply empowered right now, right? And the people closest to the finger trigger of said power are the ones most comfortable with the darkest agenda for future of humanity. They don't care about humanity. The people with the most enfranchisement and power are happy to see the most of humanity slide into some sort of informal feudal cattle class, right? Into this moment now, there's people, I'm assuming like myself, who are galvanized to say something, to do something. We're beginning to realize that our politicians are too slow, too effete, too high on the smell of their own farts. They believe in these ineffectual institutions and these ineffectual processes. They can't discredit their own processes because it's that institution and that hierarchy by which they have credibility and a platform and a salary in the first place. So you can't really expect people in any form of leadership to call bullshit on the system that enables them. And so even our politicians we can't rely on. And so the response online is millions of people. Yes, entropic and incoherent, exactly right. Millions of people all flooding the field with their commentary and their accusations and their memes and their mic drop shitty comments and snipes, and add to all of that professional trolls, people who enjoy just causing shit. Someone doesn't need to hate the forest to enjoy the power of burning it down, right? There are people like that. And then there's the grifters who are trying to, in all of this mess, trying to grow their Substack accounts and 10x it and build funnels, and that same insanity that completely poisoned Instagram is now coming here. I'll get to your comment in a second. And I can just carry on listing all the kinds of dysfunction that we are adding to in this moment. And so some people of a different kind of calling, some people are called to a kind, I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. I want to help somehow, but we actually don't know how to help. And the irony is the only space we have to help into, unless we're connected somehow or empowered in our communities, which I'm not, right? In Perth, Western Australia, there's no market here for this quality of conversation. There just isn't. And I've tried for 7 years, so I know there isn't. But some people who are called to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem, we only have the internet to do it in. We only have spaces like Substack to do it in. And now I'm sitting with this conflict in myself because I want to export sanity into the field. I want to give people maps of meaning so that they can navigate this troubled moment, this troubled shared moment that we're all experiencing. But to do that, I have to talk into the field. And how do you do that without making more noise, right? So that's tricky. how do I sit and justify me coming on here making more content, right? Whilst actually actively discouraging other people from just indiscriminately adding more content? Because it's the lack of discernment, it's the indiscriminate proliferation of content that I think is a critical own goal that humanity are serving against themselves. We love to blame the owners of the platform and the algorithm and they. We want to blame some secret evil they in a shadowy corridor in Silicon Valley or in some other corridor of power. However, if we're honest with ourselves, even though someone like the developers of Substack and the owners of Substack shape this platform a certain way, ultimately, the users are the ones that determine the outcome of it through our use, through our contribution. But we lack the self-awareness to realize what is helping and what not, and what is not helping. And then some among us don't care to help, right? I said something the other day on Substack. I said, Jesus, it's become such a farce. There's so much puerile AI slop and it's such a farce because people are even commenting in the notes section and their entire comment is something generated by ChatGPT. And when you challenge it, then there's either some daft argument about how their AI is some divine super intelligence or it's helping them express themselves. And all of that is delusional bullshit, right? I use those tools. But for God's sakes, if you can't have a serious conversation with another human being in a place like Substack, in your own words, what is the fucking point, right? And then there's other arguments that say, well, that's what the mute button is for. That's the same logic that says, let's make the roads out of inflatable rubber and make all the car tires out of tar. And so every time there's a flat on the road, you have to repair the road. It's that kind of ass backward logic. And so the platforms have given us these supposed tools of empowerment so that we think we can still control something of the experience, and individually we cannot. The only way we can do it is to adopt a collective mindset, a collective consideration. It's the only way, right? So I'm trying to thread a needle. So one of the other arguments about Substack is, if you hate it so much, why are you still here? As if the only recourse to discomfort and unhappiness is leaving or walking away. As if human beings are not mutually responsible for the commons that we share. That is the opposite of leadership. That is such a sense of self-entitlement to say, yeah, it's not my responsibility how things turn out. If I don't like something, I'll just walk away. So we didn't like how Twitter was, so then we moved to Facebook. We didn't like how Facebook was, and we moved somewhere else. We didn't like how Instagram was, and we came to Substack. Where are we going to go next? There is nowhere left to go. Okay, I think some platforms will emerge from here on out. But that's exactly the mentality that destroyed the commons in the world. We kept like fucking up our local environment, and then we went to go colonize something else. But instead of doing it differently there, we just took the bullshit that we were doing here, dressed it up in a different name and a different face, and called it American democracy. And now we're doing it over here. And the problem that we're having in the world today with that model is that there's nowhere left to colonize. There's nowhere left to move to. And now we're turning on ourselves and we're self-predating. This is why Trump has his little greedy pork fingers ready to reach out towards Greenland, because it's the spirit of empire that says, if I burn this place out, I can just go get somebody else's stuff and I can just keep expanding and taking it somewhere else. We cannot. We have to start drawing a line in the sand here. We have to start cleaning up where we are. I'm going to read a comment here. It says, I think one of your struggle here is having an ambition too big for your circle of control. When you scale back and work on people in your circle, it grows out organically. Okay, I'm going to fucking categorically disagree with that. Let me tell you what my circle of control is. My circle of control is my family, right? Not my neighborhood, not my professional circle, because Every single person has agency. Every single person is their own person. I don't control anything. None of us control anything. All we have is influence. And on social media platforms, our reach of influence is decided by the average level of engagement and intelligence and goodwill and consciousness and the machinations of a social media platform. Okay, so if everyone thinks like that, we're all going to stoically just go mind our own business and just go do things at grassroots level. That is the same as taking out a polishing cloth to try and solve something that you need a hammer and a chisel to address. Okay. I need to, I feel called to inoculate people against that limitation of thinking. I'm not suffering the limit of my reach. We collectively are suffering the limit of reach of mass infantilization. Exactly. We are suffering the limit of reach of our own, we are suffering the limits to our own discernment, so that people who actually want to be part of the solution and who have solutions, there are voices and thought leaders coming through right now. They're with us. They're with us. But they can't get any airtime in the room because we have a truckload of poor ideas like this to say, no, you should just retreat to your own square and just you look after you. I see the wisdom and the sense in that, but that wisdom and sense is running out. It's no longer sufficient anymore. And honestly, if we look back a decade from now, we will realize that there was a moment when we could still do something. Whatever collapse is happening now is in some sense necessary and also quite inevitable. Of all the ways that we're captured by terrible operating systems, we don't have the wherewithal to extricate ourselves from it. None of us, or so few of us, live in a way that is off-grid or can just isolate themselves from all the various institutions and systems and services and online functionalities that exist in the world. Our lives are so deeply integrated. I can't pay my bills here without being online in some specific way, without having an email address and all the rest of it. Now, there's a reductio ad absurdum to that argument, but on some level, we all understand that just extricating ourselves from all of this is an ideal. It's idealistic. Some people can and some people can't, and we have to figure out how to do that in a way that doesn't collapse our lives or collapse our neighborhoods or collapse our social structures. And we don't have precedent or maps for that. Some people are thinking about these problems, and those are the voices we want to hear, but we don't even know what the nature of our illness is to be able to recognize what good medicine sounds like. And so we think good medicine is, why don't you just leave if you don't like it? Or stop worrying so much about what you can't control. Human beings now need to worry about what we can't control. And the problem is what we can't control is our own birthright, our own sovereignty, our own consciousness, our own spend of energy and attention, our own agency, because all of these capacities are being co-opted by something else. And what we need now is a form of leadership that doesn't look for pacifist answers. I'm not suggesting anarchy and violence either, but if we ever mean to get anywhere meaningful from here, we need to start thinking in a way. If you look at the way ancient peoples behaved and would have had to have behaved, in a moment of famine or war, or the wolves are coming, or there's fire coming to the village, men would be arguing amongst themselves as to who's going to get the most respect or kudos or who deserves what title, all the rest of it. And the woman would have to get up and say, I'm loving all of the energy here, guys, but none of it fucking matters because the wolves are here now. The children need to be fed now. The village needs to be defended now. That's called necessity. Necessity is maturity is the wisdom of necessity. Maturity is the thing inside of us as leaders that focuses on what actually matters not on the title we carry or the pedestal we're standing on or the correctness with some predetermined philosophy that we're keeping in line with. Vital frontiers, you need to actually show, not tell, act out of necessary participation. Yes, but we don't even know how to do that. So somebody said here, more of us need to actually show, not tell. We need to act out of necessary participation. And while that's true, the conundrum that we sit with, which is what I'm trying to talk about, is we honestly don't know how to do that and how to do it well. Here's a fact that nobody's coming face to face with. There are no right or only ways. Believing that there are right or only ways is exactly what got us into this trouble in the first place. And the most energized arguments online in the world, the ones that wars are fought over and justified by, boil down to the belief that someone can be in possession of the only way or the right way. This is good and that's bad. This is right and that's wrong. So while that's true, there's this other statement that we need to now painfully incorporate, which is that just because there aren't right and only ways does not preclude the existence of better and worse ways. It's not like there is one hill that we need to climb, and if we all get there, then we'll be okay. It's a landscape, a landscape of better and worse. And the whole thing is a coordination and a navigation problem. And what I'm trying to advocate for is we don't know how to pay attention to the field. We don't know what to pay our attention and our energy to. And we don't know how to navigate this enormous complexity that we're facing at the moment. And we're busy leafing through our Rolodex of Marcus Aurelius and Seneca and Stoicism and Taoism and Buddhism quotes and Schopenhauer quotes and Albert Camus quotes and Hannah Arendt critique on fascism. And all of that is amazing stuff. But none of that is going to help this collective 9 billion people steer ourselves towards anything that remotely looks better. And in our disorganization, we're going to keep jabbering and we're going to keep riding this little hamster wheel of distraction and outrage. And all you have to do is ask yourself who or what benefits from our disenfranchisement, from our lack of agency, from our lack of discernment, from our lack of sovereignty, from our lack of coherent human leadership. Because something, if not someone, something is benefiting from that. And now we're in a situation where we're so afraid of somebody saying, I have an idea, let's go this way. Who are you? Let's first shoot this guy down instead of evaluating the idea. I'm not even saying listen to me. I'm suggesting that those human beings already exist in the field, but we're too busy stuffily defending our orthodoxy of academia, our orthodoxy of political philosophy, our orthodoxy of various other kinds of ideologies and philosophies. And these things, unfortunately, are inherently incompatible in their current expressions. Inside so many of them is a vital essence that I would want to, and we would want to extract and distill and keep with us. There's no ways we want to lose that, but we're arguing about which lane is right, and what we actually need is an intelligent synthesis of these things. But to intelligently synthesize that needs very special skills. But we don't even recognize those kind of skills as necessary to our modern time. Somebody's written here, the social issues can be compared to the electromagnetic spectrum. Most of the players are playing in their small spectrum, while the architect of the matrix operates across the entire spectrum. To operate across the full spectrum is a high demand on understanding, and to articulate this to the masses is essentially not possible. And yet that's exactly what I'm doing, or what I'm attempting. And we are better off attempting this and getting somewhere for that than not attempting it all fatalistically. Reality is emergent. We play with words like fate and destiny. and we think they mean something mystical. Here's a reframing for you. Fate is nothing more than the lay of the land, the current state of the world and all of its moving parts and energy and forces as you inherit it in this moment now. It's a culmination of all the interactions and choices and outcomes from all of the other moving parts upstream, causally upstream and temporally upstream, that we sit with now. It's the fact of the world that we cannot change. It's all the doors, sliding doors behind us that we can no longer open, that they're closed to us, right? So first of all, we're sitting with so many of our file handles and our little caches of psychic energy and energy drawn into the what ifs and could have beens and regrets about those closed door behind us. And destiny is the field of possibility that's open in front of us now. For as many doors are closed behind us, there is this exploding delta, this tree, fractal tree of possibility of a field that's still open in front of us. But the problem is the current trajectory of the world is creating an imbalance in that field so that your and my liberties and agency and field of possibility are being impinged. What is becoming possible for us now, it's like a cow getting co-opted into a inhumane battery farm. They still have these minor little channel of choices that they can call their own, perhaps. But so much has been taken away. Their why has been taken away completely. Now, our field of possibility is being impinged and being impinged and being impinged. And we will look back 2 years from now, we will look back at this moment and marvel at what was still possible to do and what was still possible to say. The convergence of this change between old nationalistic governments and them being co-opted by corporate interests, the arrival of AI, this polycrisis of geopolitical instability, climate uncertainty, economic uncertainty, food uncertainty, water uncertainty, these are all converging. And they're converging in such a way, and they're being orchestrated in such a way that a moment will come when it's going to be so dire that somebody's going to come along and offer the yoke, that thing that you put around a slave's neck or a cattle's neck, and we will welcome that yoke just for the respite, just for the relief of the onslaught of our own dissonance. And we will sacrifice our liberty in the interest of psychological safety. That to me is a hellscape. And the only way we change that is by waking up. Now, it's not my job to wake everybody up. It's life's job to wake everybody up. Life is coming along in waves, like a tropical storm arriving. The first time the first arm passes over your head, it's a light rain and everybody goes, what was the fuss about? And then an hour later, slightly heavier rain, slightly more intense for slightly longer. And in progressive waves, that intensity of the storm is arriving. But by the time the eye of the storm arrives, or even before the eye of the storm arrives, there is a threshold moment, an event horizon beyond which a ship at sea, just like you put down the anchor or you even lift the anchor up, you drop the sail and you just go, c'est la vie. It now needs to be what it is, because it's not that we can control that outcome from here on out. Our window of what we can control and what we can determine for ourselves is closing. And we don't have the skills or the wherewithal to be able to operate within that narrowing window or to widen that window in ourselves. Now, that window is something that can be widened. The consideration of discernment, the consideration of agency and sovereignty, we don't even understand these things properly. We have so much confusion around these words. These words don't even mean the same to all of us. But what I'm going to be doing is appearing here as often as I can on these live videos. I'm going to try and make them a bit more structured And the purpose is to talk about exactly what's at stake here and how to remediate that, how each individual person can actually safeguard and develop their own discernment, their own agency, their own sovereignty, and why, and what's at stake. I've got one more comment here. I am in the US. ICE can accidentally shoot me as I watch this, and they will be able to continue to the next one. Not sure when it will get worse or when it will get better. I am going to assume Americans are close to being knocked out of agency and sovereignty game. Well, they have for a long time, and everything that you see now is the prequel, the pilot episode to a series that's going to play out now. And we are normalizing all of this. There is a part of all of us, just before I sign off, there is a part of all of us that is morbidly watching all of these horrors unfold right in front of our eyes. And there's a part of us that is so desensitized to that, so adapted to that we kind of treating it like a Netflix series. It's a horror to watch, but at least we can switch it off and we can close our eyes and look away for a bit. And as long as the collapse and the calamity has an aesthetic quality to it, as long as it's entertaining on some level, we kind of morbidly just sitting there eating the popcorn, watching it. But something inside of ourselves is rebelling and revolting against that. And what that looks like in a human being is called psychosis and burnout and overwhelm. And we have a pandemic of just epic proportions bubbling up, and we've got no solutions to that. Absolutely no solution. We don't even know the disease that is that we're catching. We don't even know the disease we're catching. So, folks, is there any hope? Yes. And hope lies in human beings remembering their humanity. Hope lies in human beings remembering what is most necessary. And we need to have lots of conversation and discussion like this, but that only becomes possible if we can distinguish between content and craft. Not all content is equal. Not all social media voices are equal. Not all leaders are actual leaders. Some of the most necessary voices that we need to hear now don't call themselves leaders. They are thought leaders. They are philosophers. They are artists. They are poets. They are from a million walks of life and from dozens of vocations. But you'll notice that there's a convergence, there's a sameness in what they're saying. And some of them, all you have to tell them about is this opportunity for a sameness and this opportunity for collaboration, for meaningful collaboration, for not just making noise for the sake of it. And if we can start discerning that, and we can start practicing that, and we can start giving language for that, collective language for that, we have a better chance. We have a better chance. Now, there are maps, there's keys, there's tools for all of these things. And I've developed these for the last 7 years, and they're not the only ones, right? But what I'm hoping to do after this, just before I say goodbye, is create here on Substack a public speaking platform where we can invite such people that we notice or that we catch somewhere along our threads or our feeds. And we can funnel them towards this kind of project and say, come and do something akin to a TED Talk, something akin to a public address. It doesn't have to be a cute 20-minute polished keynote, but it still has to be contained and it has to be functional. And we have to start agreeing to a set of social operating rules that actually benefit this project. So I'll talk more about this tomorrow. Thank you, folks, for joining me. Sorry I had to drop out of the last call. All of this is experimental and imperfect in some sense. And thank you for staying with me, and thank you for joining for the conversation. And at some point today, I will take this and I will package it properly and publish it on Substack. But that's it. Vital Frontiers, love it. Thank you for being here. Have a great day.